My daughter went missing after recess, and when the school finally told me, they brushed it off like she must have known the man, because she didn't make a scene. When I asked the teacher how someone could have gotten so close to her without anybody stepping in, she lowered her voice and said the school didn't want the publicity. I couldn't even catch my breath. That was over a week ago. Just yesterday, the superintendent suddenly stepped down, didn't say a word about it. Before I was awarded full custody of Lily, my 8-year-old, she had a rough start in life. Her mom managed to convince the judge I was unfit, all because of one college mistake, a public intoxication charge that had nothing to do with who I am now. Meanwhile, while Lily lived with her mom and stepfather, the guy treated her like she was nothing but a punching bag. I knew this was happening because I'd sneak visits, dropping by during school lunch, showing up quietly at her after-school stuff, and every time, she'd have some new bruise or scratch on her little body. So the second the court gave her back to me, I made a vow that I'd never let anyone hurt her again. A few months later, we were grabbing food at the mall, sitting in the food court. I was sipping an iced coffee while she colored in one of those kid menus. For once, it felt like life had calmed down, like we were finally okay. Then Lily looked up and started waving excitedly towards someone. I turned to see who it was, and I caught sight of this guy staring off like he wasn't really there, bald, pale, something off about him. But then I noticed something even worse. His arm was jerking oddly beneath his table. I leaned forward to get a better look. That's when I realized his belt was unbuckled, and his pants were halfway down. My whole body went cold. Lily was too young to understand what any of that meant, and I didn't want to ruin her innocence, but I understood what that guy's sick mind was focused on. I immediately shifted over to sit beside her. I told her to concentrate on her coloring, my voice firm. She listened, thankfully, and turned her eyes back to the page. Right then, a manager was walking by. I leaned slightly and nodded toward the table where the man was sitting, my eyes doing the explaining. When the manager went over to check it out, the man slowly brought both hands up onto the table. That's when I saw a hospital bracelet on his wrist, and the confused look in his eyes threw me off. I honestly didn't know what the hell was happening. While the manager asked him questions, I noticed his hands were trembling. Maybe it was some condition like Parkinson's? I felt embarrassed, like maybe I'd misjudged the whole thing. But just as I started to think maybe I'd overreacted, the manager raised his voice and demanded to see the man's phone. The guy was big, tall, and built, and his tone was hard to ignore. The old man gave this tight, resigned smile, like he knew there was no way out of it. When he placed the unlocked phone on the table, I saw it right away. The photo app was open, and it was full of pictures of Lily. Shot from under the table, zoomed in on her face, different angles. It made my stomach turn. Even though every part of me wanted to lose it and put that guy in the hospital, I stayed calm, because if I truly wanted to protect Lily, the first thing I had to do was make sure she didn't see any of this. She looked up at me, asking sweetly what her waving friend was doing. The innocence in her voice just about crushed me. I told her, sharply, to go use the restroom because we'd be leaving soon. She looked hurt, clearly confused by the cold tone I used, but it got her to move. I didn't hesitate. I went over and grabbed the guy's phone myself, needing to confirm what I'd seen. What I found was worse. His photo gallery was full of labeled folders, pictures of different kids. There was one tagged brunette from playground, another redhead at the beach, and one disturbingly titled early bloomer blonde. And there weren't just a few photos, there were dozens, maybe more. I scrolled for what felt like forever before the images finally ended. Then Lily came back. I took her to the mall's supervised play area and told her I'd be right back. At that point, her feelings didn't matter, only her safety. She cried, probably thinking she'd done something wrong, but I didn't let myself care. I turned around and went back to the food court, expecting to see the guy getting confronted or taken down by the other men who had seen it. But what I walked into was completely backwards. They were comforting him. One of them even gave him a pat on the back. One of the guys looked at me and said something like, "We understand," trying to sound reassuring. I can't lie, at that moment, I genuinely wished I had something heavy in my hands. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man had just targeted my little girl, and everyone was acting like it wasn't a big deal. The manager cut in, telling me to calm down. He explained that they had already spoken to the man's son and found out he was a veteran with a serious brain condition. He can't control it, the guy said, like that somehow made it all okay. I looked over at the old man, and he had this smug little grin on his face. It hit a nerve. My dad served. My grandfather, too. Neither of them ever turned into the kind of person who preyed on children. That excuse? It was worthless to me. Everything in me wanted to lose control, to pick the guy up and end it right there. But I didn't. I forced a smile and played along. I even said something sweet, pretending to buy their excuse. And that creepy old man, he actually thought I believed it. But I wasn't fooled. I had something else in mind. I was thinking long-term, knowing full well that by the time I was done, he'd regret making it back from whatever war he came from. I headed back to get Lily from the play area and took her home. Later that night, after she'd gone to bed, I found myself just sitting there at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. The images I'd seen earlier wouldn't leave me alone. His expression, those photos, the fact that everyone just let him go, it haunted me. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, even though I rarely drank anymore, especially since getting custody. It burned going down, but it didn't help. The anger and disgust stayed with me. I kept seeing Lily's little face, waving at that monster like he was someone friendly. I couldn't stop thinking about those other kids in his photo folders either. The next morning, I got on the phone with the mall's corporate office and told them exactly what had happened. I asked if I could get a copy of the security footage. They said they'd review it but couldn't send it to me directly because of privacy rules. I also went to the police and filed a report, but the officer who took it didn't seem all that bothered. He took down the details and said they'd look into it. That wasn't good enough for me. I needed to know who this man was. I had to be sure he wasn't going to hurt another child. So I started going back to the mall at different times during the week, hoping to spot him again. After 3 days of watching and waiting, I finally saw him sitting at the same table in the food court, just quietly watching the kids play nearby. But this time I was ready. I picked a table where I could see him, but he couldn't see me, and I pulled out my phone. I started filming. And sure enough, within a few minutes, I noticed that same movement under the table. It made my stomach churn, but I kept recording. I needed proof. I sat there for 20 minutes, capturing everything. His stare, the subtle but obvious motion of his arm, the way he'd look around to check if anyone was watching. It was all so calculated, so vile. Once I had enough, I stood up and walked over, sat down right across from him, and said something to get his attention. He looked up, and I could see the moment he recognized me. His hand quickly came up off his lap. He tried to play dumb, saying he didn't think we'd met before, but his voice was shaky. I leaned in and told him, plain and clear, that I knew exactly what he'd done around my daughter the other day, and what he was doing now. I stayed calm, even though I wanted to lose it. He started rambling about having a medical issue, and how his nephew could vouch for him. I didn't let him finish. I told him I'd been recording everything and held up my phone so he could see it. I made it clear this was going to the police. Real police this time, not mall security. That wiped the smirk off his face in a heartbeat. He started pleading, saying I didn't understand, claiming he was sick and needed help, not punishment. I leaned in closer and told him that I agreed. He clearly wasn't well, and yes, he needed help. But that didn't give him a pass to sit around taking pictures of children. He glanced around the food court, clearly nervous now, and begged me not to make a scene. He said he could explain everything. I told him I wasn't causing a scene. I was just making sure he knew that someone was watching now, and he wouldn't be flying under the radar anymore. Then I stood up and walked away, my heart pounding like crazy. I didn't know if confronting him like that was the right move, but at least now he knew he wasn't invisible. He knew I was onto him. I thought confronting him might scare him off, but hope wasn't enough. I took the mall footage straight to the police. This time, the officer at the desk actually listened when I mentioned I had video. Detective Emily Carter, who handled child-related cases, brought me into a small interview room. She watched the video, her face tight with concern. But the footage wasn't clear enough. We couldn't actually see what the man was doing under the table. Just enough to unsettle, not enough to act on. And we had no photo proof of the disturbing images the manager had seen on his phone. We'd moved too fast that day, no one captured his screen. Carter asked for every detail I remembered, his looks, where I'd seen him, how he behaved. I gave her everything I had, though it felt like a drop in the ocean. She warned me not to confront him again. People like that can turn dangerous when cornered. I left feeling helpless. That man could still walk freely through public spaces, watching kids, and no one could stop him. Lily, even with me fighting for her, was still vulnerable. For the next few days, I kept Lily busy, new parks, new routines, avoiding the mall completely. But the paranoia stayed. I kept scanning crowds, watching faces, feeling the pressure build. One day at the park, Lily asked why I kept looking around. I told her I was just keeping her safe. Then she asked if it was because of the man at the mall. Her voice was light, but her eyes knew more than I wanted to admit. She'd heard more than I realized. I sat her down and explained that, yes, sometimes people take pictures of kids without asking, and that it's wrong. I told her to always speak up if anything made her uncomfortable. She nodded solemnly, then tried to make me laugh by flexing her little arms, calling herself strong. It worked. I told her she was strong, but that it was still my job to protect her. That night, I couldn't sleep. The man's face, the phone, the way he watched, it all looped in my mind. The police weren't moving fast enough. So I decided to act. After dropping Lily at school, I returned to the mall. I talked to vendors. Most hadn't noticed him, but the barista at the coffee stand remembered. Said he came almost every day, always ordered a black coffee, and never tipped. He creeped her out too. She didn't know his name, but said he sometimes paid with a card. I gave her my number and asked her to text me if he came back. I did the same with other shop workers. It wasn't much, but it felt like doing something. 2 days later, I got a text while at work. He's back. The barista said his credit card read, Mike Walker. Finally, a name. I thanked her and dove into online searches. There were a few Mike Walkers nearby, but with public records and social media, I narrowed it down. His Facebook profile was nearly empty, just a blurry photo and a line about being a retired school janitor. That hit hard. The idea of him spending years around teens, trusted in schools, made me sick. No address listed, just a general area. I thought about driving over, staking it out. But Carter's warning came back, don't confront him. So I called her, told her what I'd found. She paused, then said, good work. Detective Carter told me they'd dig deeper, look into his employment history, see if anyone had ever filed complaints against him back when he worked at the school. It was a step forward, a small win, but it wasn't nearly enough. I couldn't stop thinking about what might happen if we didn't act fast enough. Weekend rolled around, and I'd already promised Lily we'd go to the community pool. It was her favorite way to spend the weekend, especially now that she was finally getting the hang of swimming. I hesitated. The idea of a public pool, full of kids in swimsuits, made my stomach twist into knots. But I didn't want to break her heart. She'd been looking forward to it all week. We got there early to beat the crowds. Lily was bubbling with excitement, going on and on about how she was going to show me how far she could swim now. I helped her get her floaties on and watched her splash around in the shallow end. For a brief moment, it felt like things were okay. Then I saw him. He was sitting casually on a bench by the pool, sunglasses on, baseball cap pulled low. A newspaper rested in his hands, but he wasn't reading it. His eyes were on the children. And when I followed his gaze, it led straight to Lily. My stomach dropped. Instinct kicked in, and I moved into the water, staying close to her, positioning myself so his view of her was blocked. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and called Detective Carter, whispering into the speaker. He was here. Right now. Watching. She told me to stay calm. Officers were on their way. I did everything I could to appear normal for Lily's sake. I smiled, suggested we swim in another part of the pool, guiding her away from his line of sight. She resisted, not understanding why, but eventually followed my lead. I kept looking over. Walker knew I'd seen him. He stiffened, suddenly pretending to be very interested in his newspaper, but he didn't move. He just sat there, pretending to blend in. It took 15 excruciating minutes for the officers to arrive. 2 plainclothes cops entered the pool area, subtle and relaxed, then made their way to him. I couldn't hear the exchange, but I saw them ask for his ID. They spoke for a few minutes, then, just like that, they walked away. He stayed. I was stunned, furious. I got Lily out of the water, wrapped her in a towel, and told her we had to leave. She pouted, confused and disappointed, but I wasn't about to risk another second. As we were heading out, one of the officers stopped me. He said they'd spoken to Walker, who claimed he was just enjoying a day at the pool. They couldn't arrest someone for sitting on a bench. I pushed back, asked if they'd even checked his phone for pictures. They said they tried, but without a warrant, they couldn't force him to hand it over. He refused. Legally, he had that right. My blood boiled. So that was it? That's all they could do? Let him stay and keep watching? Lily tugged at my hand, asking who I was talking to. The officer gave me a look that was meant to be sympathetic. Said they were keeping an eye on him. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. That night, after Lily was asleep, I got in the car and drove to Walker's neighborhood. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to accomplish. I felt like a shadow of myself, creeping slowly past houses, scanning mailboxes and driveways. Then I spotted it, His old blue Ford parked in front of a rundown house tucked into a quiet cul-de-sac. I parked a block away and just sat there, watching. The lights inside were on. What was he doing? Staring at more pictures? Planning where to go next? The thought made me sick. A part of me wanted to break in right then and there. Grab his phone, his computer, whatever I could find. But I couldn't. If I got caught, I could lose custody of Lily. I couldn't risk that, not even for this. After about an hour of sitting in silence, feeling like I was becoming the very thing I feared, I drove home. I needed a smarter way to handle this. The next morning, I skipped work. I went to the school where Walker had worked before retiring. I told the front office staff that I was considering enrolling my daughter and wanted to get a sense of the school's history. That's when they introduced me to Tina Brooks, a math teacher who'd been there for over 30 years. We were just making small talk, school stuff, community, when I dropped his name casually. Mike Walker. The moment I said it, Walker's warm smile vanished, replaced by something tight, guarded. She confirmed he'd worked there, retired years ago, but when I pressed if she really knew him, she hesitated. Said he kept to himself. Quiet. I knew she was hiding something. So I dropped the act. I told her I wasn't there to enroll Lily. I'd seen Walker more than once, lurking at the mall, near the pool, filming kids, including my daughter. Walker's went pale. Shoulders slumped like she'd carried a heavy secret forever. Then she whispered, I knew it. There'd been rumors all along, girls complaining about being watched in locker rooms. One even said she caught him with a camera through a vent. But the school found nothing. Or maybe they didn't want to find anything. They just moved his cleaning schedule away from girls' areas and called it a solution. I clenched my fists. That excuse, letting him stay because there wasn't proof, made my blood boil. He was close to retirement, she said, like that made it okay. I left with more fire than when I came in. That school had failed every girl he stared at. Now, despite new places, new kids, he was still out there doing the same thing. And no one was stopping him. The police? They said they were watching him, keeping tabs. But kids were still being victimized. My kid was still in danger. The system wasn't enough, not the school, not the cops. Only I could protect Lily. I made a plan. I'd get the evidence the police didn't have. Hard proof. Something they couldn't ignore. That Saturday, I asked Rachel, Lily's babysitter and neighbor, to watch her. Rachel loved Lily and was someone I trusted completely. I went back to the mall with a better camera, one with a zoom lens, clearer than my phone. I sat where I could see Walker's usual spot perfectly. There he was, coffee in hand, pretending to read on a bench, but his eyes locked on the playground, watching the kids, especially the ones who laughed, move the most. I took picture after picture, his phone under the table, that flick of his wrist snapping photos, his gaze fixed on children. My lens caught it all. He was a predator. After about an hour, he left for the restroom. My heart raced. I waited, then followed. Inside, it was empty except for him. He'd gone into his stall but hadn't shut the door fully. I peeked through the crack and saw him scrolling through the photos he'd just taken. That same creepy, proud smile. Like he thought he was untouchable. I started recording on my phone, zooming in on his screen photos of kids, the way his hand moved. My stomach twisted, but I kept steady. This was the evidence I needed. Suddenly, the door creaked open. Another man came in. Walker scrambled, hiding his phone and coming out like nothing was wrong. His eyes met mine. Recognition hit him like a punch. For a moment, he just stared. Then his mask snapped back, confused, accusing. I said nothing, just pocketed my phone and held his gaze. He knew. He tried to excuse himself, sick, broken, unable to control urges. Not responsible. I shut him down. Told him I had what I needed. His expression changed from desperate to dangerous. Threatened that no one would believe me, that he'd file restraining orders, accuse me of mistreatment, maybe sue. And I laughed. Because this time, I knew his fear was real. I stared him down, heart pounding but face cold. Go ahead, I said. Let's see how that medical condition holds up when a judge watches the footage. He sneered. You think you're clever? I've done this for decades. No one's caught me. Decades. The word sent a chill through me. How many kids had he hurt? How many lives ruined in silence? But it stopped here. Not anymore. I told him so. He stepped closer, face twisted with rage and fear. Then he threatened me. He knew where I lived, where Lily went to school. If I didn't back off, I'd regret it. For a moment, panic surged through me. He'd been following us. Knew my daughter's routines. But I swallowed it. Couldn't show weakness. I calmly asked if he wanted to repeat himself, this time while I recorded. That made him back down. He stormed out, leaving a silence heavier than any shout. I waited, collected myself, and left. He was gone. First thing, call Detective Carter. I told her everything, his threat, the photos, the video. Her voice shifted. Get to the station. Bring everything. Every red light felt endless as I drove. Did confronting him make things worse? Was Lily in more danger now? At the station, I laid it all out. Photos, recordings, every detail. Carter's eyes narrowed at the footage, especially his admission of decades of abuse. The threat against my daughter made it urgent. So you're arresting him? I asked, desperate. She said they'd bring him in for questioning, get a search warrant. But then she looked me straight in the eye. No more going after him on your own. She was right. I'd taken risks too close to danger. I nodded. Time to let the professionals finish it. Still, a part of me wanted to be there when they cuffed him. When he realized someone stopped him for good. Back home, Lily was safe, laughing over board games with Rachel, unaware of the storm around her. But Walker's threat haunted me. I didn't sleep at home. I packed our things and told Lily we were going for a surprise hotel sleepover, pool, snacks, movies. She lit up like Christmas. In the hotel, I locked everything down. Curtains shut, door jammed. Every sound made me check on her. At dawn, I called Carter. She didn't waste words. We brought him in last night. They acted fast, using my evidence and his history to get a warrant. And I barely breathed. It's worse than we thought. Thousands of images, videos. Some unspeakable. She didn't need to say more. He's in custody? Yes. Charged with multiple felonies, possession, voyeurism, threats. With all we found, he won't see the outside world for a long time. I exhaled deeply. Finally, he was behind bars. Lily was safe. But the guilt lingered. I had to see it with my own eyes. After checking out of the hotel, I drove past Walker's house once. Yellow police tape blocked the door. Forensics vans in the driveway. Officers carrying boxes wrapped in plastic. They were uncovering years of filth. Across the street, a woman watched silently. I pulled over, cracked the window, and asked like any neighbor, what's going on? She shook her head. They arrested Mike last night. No one's saying why, but they've been here all morning. She had no idea what he'd done. How long? How close he'd come to hurting another child, my child. I said nothing, thanked her quietly, rolled the window up, and drove away. That chapter was over. But the ache, the guilt for not acting sooner, that I'd carry forever. I asked the neighbor if she knew Walker well. She shook her head, saying he kept to himself after moving in about 6 years ago when he retired. But then her voice dropped. There was always something off about him, the way he'd watch the neighborhood kids silently. She never let her grandkids visit when he was around. I asked if he had family or visitors. No family, but sometimes friends came over, older men, just like him. They'd meet in his garage, door closed. She found it strange. That sent a new wave of dread through me. Friends? Secret meetings? What if Walker wasn't acting alone? What if this was part of a twisted network hiding in plain sight, sharing images and information? I thanked her and called Detective Carter right away. She was already investigating his connections. His computer had emails and messages, communications with others. They were tracking those people down. I asked about the children in the photos. Were they identified? Were they safe? Carter said that process would take time. It always did. I hung up frustrated, not with her, but with how slow justice moves. This whole thing had only started because I forced it. How many more were out there, hidden behind quiet doors? The next weeks were tense. I installed a full security system, cameras, alarms, extra locks. I changed our daily routes, school, work, errands. Nothing was routine. I even thought about moving, but Lily was adjusting well, and I didn't want to uproot her unless I had no choice. Walker stayed in custody, denied bail as a flight risk. Detective Carter kept me updated. They identified several men from his digital trail, and the investigation was growing. But it took time, too much time. Then, almost a month later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. A woman named Laura introduced herself. Her voice trembled as she told me her son was in one of the photos. The police had shown her some of the less explicit ones to help identify victims. I sat down, stunned. I apologized, even though I knew it wasn't my fault. But Laura didn't call to blame me, she called to thank me. She said it was because of me that Walker was caught, that her son was finally safe. She kept saying how grateful she was I didn't look away. Her words broke through something I'd built around myself. I'd been so focused on protecting Lily, I hadn't let myself feel the wider impact, other families, other children whose worlds had been shattered. When I told her I just did what any parent would, she stopped me. Most people make a report and step back. I didn't. Because of that, her son and many others were safe. After we hung up, I went to Lily's room. She was asleep, clutching her stuffed tiger. I kissed her forehead and promised silently she would never face that darkness alone. The danger wasn't gone. Court hearings and trials were ahead. The other men were still out there for now, but that shadow over our lives was behind bars. The next morning, Laura's call stayed with me. This wasn't just about Lily anymore. Other kids were out there, kids whose parents didn't even know. Lily ate cereal, swinging her feet, and asked to go to the park after school. I said yes, but suggested a new park. I couldn't risk our usual one. Not yet. I dropped her at school, tried to work, but my mind kept drifting to that garage, those secret meetings, those other men. At lunch, I called Carter again. She said they'd identified 3 men tied to Walker and were building cases. But, like always, it would take time. Time meant risk. I stared at my phone, unsure what to do next, but I knew I wasn't done. Not yet. I asked Detective Carter if she had names or addresses of the men they'd identified. Her tone turned firm, no more amateur detective work. I knew she was right, but I couldn't shake the fear. I told her I was scared. What if they knew who we were? Her voice softened. There was no sign Lily or I were being targeted. But she warned me, call immediately if I noticed anything suspicious. That afternoon, I took Lily to a park across town, hoping distance would ease my anxiety. She laughed and played while I sat on a bench, scanning every adult nearby. That's when I noticed a gray sedan parked across the street. The man inside hadn't moved since we arrived. Sunglasses on, cloudy day, long lens camera in hand. My heart dropped. I stood and calmly called Lily over. Time to go, sweetie. She protested, but I forced a smile and gave her a quick excuse. I held her hand tight, placing myself between her and the car. As we drove off, the gray sedan pulled out behind us. My palms were sweating. Was he following us? I made random turns through side streets. Lily asked why we were driving in circles. I lied, just taking the scenic route. I called Carter, my voice low but urgent. I told her a man had followed us from the park, taking pictures. She reacted fast, asked my location, and sent a patrol car. Minutes crawled. The sedan stayed behind us until I spotted a police cruiser. I pulled over, explained everything. The officers sped off to find the car, but it had already vanished. Probably realized we were onto him, one said. Go home. Lock your doors. That night, I barely slept. Every sound had me checking windows. The fear was back, stronger. The next morning, I called in Derek to stay with Lily and kept her home from school. She thought it was a special day. I forced a smile and said we'd bake cookies and watch movies. But I couldn't focus. I was listening for anything, everything. Then the phone rang. Carter. There'd been a development. I got Rachel to watch Lily and rushed to the station. Carter introduced me to Detective Mark and Gwen. They'd made progress. From Walker's computer, they'd identified multiple men involved in sharing illicit content. One of them was the man from the park. His name was David Cross. My stomach turned. So it was him. He knew who I was, who Lily was. And Gwen explained they'd found messages between Walker and Cross. Walker had told him I was the reason he'd been arrested. I asked, is Cross in custody? Carter shook her head. Not yet. We're building the case, but it's not enough for a warrant. So he was still out there, watching us, taking photos. I felt sick. I was supposed to keep Lily safe, but one of these predators was still free, circling our lives. That night, the nightmare felt like it had shifted, no longer hiding, but walking right behind us. And I knew I wasn't done fighting. Not even close. Detective Carter promised they'd expedite the warrant and place a patrol car near my house. But despite her reassurances, I left the station feeling worse. The system moved too slowly, and now, those men knew exactly who I was. At home, Rachel was helping Lily with an art project. The table was covered in glitter and paper, Lily's laughter like a fragile reminder of normalcy. Rachel noticed the strain on my face, but I brushed it off with a lie about work. I didn't want to pull them into this nightmare. After she left, I checked every lock and window, even pushed a bookshelf against the back door. It felt absurd, but I needed some illusion of control. That night, I sat in the dark, peering through the curtains. Around midnight, a car crept past. It circled 3 times, then parked a few houses down. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, the car was gone. They took a report, but I could see doubt in their eyes. The following days blurred into anxious routines. I dropped Lily off and picked her up from school myself, always scanning for threats. I installed cameras and motion lights. Slept with a bat by my bed. Carter kept calling with updates. More suspects were identified from Walker's files, but no arrests yet. Meanwhile, I kept seeing that gray sedan, near the school, the grocery store, our house. Every report ended the same way, gone before the police showed up. I began to doubt myself. Was I losing it? Then came the call from Lily's school. She hadn't returned after recess. My chest collapsed. I sped to the school, panic clouding my vision. The principal met me at the office. They'd searched everywhere. Lily was gone. A playground monitor recalled seeing Lily talking to a man near the fence. Thought he was a relative. Lily seemed calm. I knew in my gut, David Cross. The police launched a full search. Cameras on campus had been tampered with that morning. Someone had known what they were doing. Carter promised an Amber Alert. They were hitting every location linked to Cross and Walker's circle. The hours crawled. Daylight faded. My mind spiraled with fear, thinking of those awful photos, the children Walker had hurt. I couldn't breathe picturing Lily among them. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, heart in my throat. Hello, Daddy. Lily's voice, trembling but alive. Lily, are you okay? Where are you? I'm at the park, the one with the big blue slide, she whispered. The man said he was your friend, but he wasn't nice. I knew the park, 2 miles from the school. Stay right there, I told her, keeping my voice steady. Don't move. I'm coming to get you. I told Lily I was coming right away, and I asked if the man was still there. She shook her head. He'd gotten a phone call and started yelling, then bolted like a scared animal. I relayed everything to Detective Carter, who immediately sent officers rushing to the park. I jumped into my car and drove like a madman, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Carter followed close behind. When I got there, I saw Lily sitting alone on a bench near the playground, looking small and scared. I ran to her and scooped her up, holding her tighter than I ever had before. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? I asked, scanning her for any signs of injury. She shook her head, voice quiet but steady. I'm okay. He just talked weird and kept taking pictures. Then she told me how the man had tried to lure her to his car, but she remembered what I'd told her about strangers and ran away. Tears streamed down my face as I hugged her again. You did exactly the right thing, Lily. I'm so proud of you, I whispered, overwhelmed. Detective Carter approached, her face serious but relieved. She said we needed to get both of us somewhere safe. Cross was still out there somewhere. They took us to a hotel under police protection. Carter interviewed Lily gently, coaxing out every detail. Lily explained how she had hidden in the park, found a phone left on a bench, and called me. The detective said Lily was incredibly brave and smart. Most kids wouldn't have thought to look for a phone or remember their parents' number. I nodded, still shaken by how close I'd come to losing her. What happens now? I asked. We've launched a full manhunt for Cross, Carter said. His photos everywhere. He won't get far. Then she hesitated, dropping something heavy. There's something else, she said quietly. When Lily mentioned Cross got that phone call and started yelling, that's when we believe he found out Walker has made a deal. A deal? I pressed. Carter looked at me gravely. Walker has agreed to provide information about his network in exchange for considering. Her words hung in the air, the weight of what was coming next sinking in deep. That night, I sat by Lily's bed long after she fell asleep, the room lit only by the soft glow of her nightlight. I watched her chest rise and fall, steady and peaceful, while my mind churned with fear and fury. David Cross was still out there, watching, waiting, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Not yet. But I made myself a promise, whatever came next, I'd be ready. I wasn't just a witness anymore. I was a father, a protector, and now, a survivor of something far bigger than I ever imagined. They thought they could scare me into silence. They were wrong. Tomorrow, I'd get up, make Lily breakfast, and take the next step. I'd keep fighting. Not just for her, but for every child they thought no one would notice. Because someone was watching now. Me.